This series is one that I will probably do for all of the types, just because you can give a lot of varied information and approach this from many different angles. 2 things before we start. Actually, 3. Firstly, INFJs, please subscribe. I appreciate it greatly. Secondly, 12 Rules is an aspiration. It seemed like a fun title based on the well-known book, but 12 is a lot. For this first episode, I will do 12 though. Finally, and most importantly, these rules are a combination of advice that I'd give to INFJs, but also things that you can learn from them, i.e. rules that INFJs would advocate. So it's a mixture of both. Number 1. You are the sum and sponge of the people you spend the most time with. To read people well, you can analyze them in a detached, almost scientific way, or you can react to them emotionally and use that as a guide. INFJs do both very well. The problem comes from the latter. To be a good keeper of the peace, it can't be purely intellectual. You have to actually feel discomfort when there's disharmony. That way, you will feel more compelled to act in a way that changes it. As you can imagine, and as INFJs will tell you, that's an instinctive mechanism and impulse that is extremely useful, but also one that can really wear down the person who possesses it. So it's essential for high FE types, INFJs especially, to be careful about who they surround themselves with. Drama, negativity, and bad feeling will seep into INFJs in a way that is very hard to scrub out. Number 2. Action is the antidote. So, pretty much everything can be seen as an action of some sort. What I'm referring to here is 2 things. One is action as opposed to thinking and planning, so executing and implementing. The other is action that affords immediacy and conclusion over a short period of time. NIDOMs tend to tolerate longer time frames more easily. A plan that involves many steps is totally fine to them. The idea of working on something whose payoff is far down the line can even be quite appealing to them. SEDOMs, on the other hand, prefer to have immediacy of impact. They want to act, then receive feedback based on that action. They want to do a task and have it be done. It's important for INFJs to do this fairly often. It gets them out of their heads and puts them in more of a flow state. Overthinking, analysis paralysis, mental loops, and ruts are real risks for INFJs based on how cerebral and in their heads they can be. People often have a very contentious relationship with their inferior function. It's not just something that they naturally struggle with, it's also the opposite of their main preferred way of understanding the world. If you can provide someone with a good experience related to their inferior function, if you can bring about a situation in which they use it successfully, then they're going to feel very good about that. Similarly, if you want to use the same approach to hack yourself as an INFJ, put yourself into situations where you can use your SE successfully. Find some simple activity that can be done in the moment, in real time, that gives you immediate outcomes and feedback, and ideally has you moving around as well. This can be really simple, such as doing some chores around the house, or going for a drive in your car and calling to the shop. There's no deep analysis going on. There's no abstracting and intellectualizing. You're taking action and you're getting some kind of result. It will definitely put you in a good mood. Number 3. Every relationship is an investment. This is something that INFJs do naturally. They cultivate relationships with people. Sometimes it can feel like they're getting nothing back from it, but I think it's worth it, even if it feels like it isn't sometimes. You learn a lot about people, about yourself, human psychology, and the effects of a positive relationship with someone ripple outwards into the world in ways that aren't always obvious, but are very real and impactful. Number 4. Fear is the price of imagination. INFJs' minds can be a scary place at times, but they should keep it an unfiltered, non-safe, and open place. Don't shut out the dark thoughts. There's a reason for them. They need to be processed, and it will aid your understanding of human nature so much more. Your empathy will increase immensely. There are no bad thoughts, only bad actions. If you can separate the two and make sure that one doesn't lead to the other, now you're able to explore mentally much more. Number 5. Do not fight the last war. This one I read in a book. Always update your knowledge. Fight against NI's tendency to gravitate towards the known. Avoid stagnation in the ideational realm and try to approach situations with new and fresh eyes, as opposed to relying on the ideas and mental systems that you've developed. Think of it like trying to channel both NE and SE in situations. Using the same strategies that won you the last war, or even last battle, so to speak, could get you seriously outmaneuvered in the next one. Situations are often similar, but rarely exactly the same. Being mindful of those precise differences is deeply important. Number 6. Soft, slow power can be more effective. This is one that INFJs are frequent exponents of. People resist force being exerted upon them. They become defensive and hostile to what you're saying. But if you guide people gently, it's much more effective. Even if people know you're doing it, they'll be more receptive to it. Trying to bring about change within a person can be like pulling them out of quicksand. The harder you pull, the more difficult it is. When INFJs use their deft and delicate touch, they're often much more powerful. Number 7. Wise people advise from experience. Wiser people from experience do not advise. I think this quote captures how INFJs embody that role of confidant best. Instead of preaching at people with all of the condescension that comes with it, it's mainly about listening and being a vehicle for other people to figure themselves out, almost sitting there like a dusty mirror and encouraging people to gradually wipe it off to be able to see themselves better. Number 8. Buy the ticket, take the ride. A simple one here. You can't control everything or account for all possibilities. At times, it's important to resist that INFJ urge to start anticipating, ruminating about the future, and trying to know as much as humanly possible ahead of time. Curb the low-key control freak tendencies lurking in there, and realize that embracing the chaos has its own rewards. It's commonly said that most of your self-growth comes from venturing outside of your comfort zone. However, I think that most of people's productivity comes from operating within their comfort zone. So you need to venture out, grow, and develop, but then return back to a more stable place and create, produce, reap the rewards, or put into practice what you've learned. For INFJs, embracing the chaos of life and letting it take you on a ride is where lots of that growth will come from. Number 9. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This is a quote that high TE types, like ENTJs and ESTJs, would certainly approve of. INFJs, in certain typing systems, have what is known as blind spot TE. Extroverted thinking, and all of the traits that come with it, is something that INFJs struggle with. Having to organize ultra quickly, on the fly, is difficult for them. Imagine having an army at your disposal, and you are mid-battle. It's complete chaos, and you need to coordinate your troops in the most efficient and effective way in real time, reacting and adapting as quickly as possible. That is going to be really tricky for INFJs. Those are activities that types with low SE or TE struggle with. So to deal with this, INFJs can create systems in their lives. This is an element of TE thinking that they can replicate in other ways, using their own functions. This can simply be anything that allows you to externalize your memory and your plans. So any apps or tools where you can get things written down and laid out in a structured way. It's extremely useful to fall back on these things in the moment to avoid getting flustered or thrown off. Essentially, it's about using your planning skills to organize your life. Number 10. Trust but verify. This is a well-known phrase. I think it's originally some Russian proverb. There are two ways this is useful for INFJs. The first concerns their intuition. INFJs should trust their intuition. It's a valid way to understand the world and navigate through it. However, don't stay exclusively in that realm. Make sure to check in with data to back up your hunches and validate that the patterns you're seeing are real. The second way this quote applies is when it comes to people. INFJs are naturally trusting towards people. They like to give people the benefit of the doubt more often than not. However, that's still not an excuse to be willfully ignorant if a person is acting in a weird or unpleasant way. So trust yourself and others, but verify too. Number 11. Find someone to be your INFJ. Basically, the natural role you play for other people is one you should find yourself on the receiving end of as well from time to time. Without this, INFJs are likely to be somewhat emotionally repressed. Strange as that might sound for a feeling type. I'm not sure that misunderstood is the best phrase to describe INFJs. It's more not understood. Because they spend more time trying to understand other people and keep themselves more private and therefore mysterious as a result. Number 12. Like and subscribe. Okay, just kidding. Kind of. Number 12. We create the reality we think we deserve, so be careful. So this is a topic that I would like to explore in more detail at some point. I have a second channel, just called Nathan Glass, that I want to experiment with, so I might go in depth about this topic on there at some point. Feel free to check out the links to that below in the description. So this concept is applicable to everyone. However, if certain types are going to be more susceptible to this, INFJs would definitely be one of them. INFJs are simulators of things that could potentially happen. It's actually hard for them to not think this way. They typically have quite wild imaginations, and if they have some kind of goal or desire or vision for themselves, then they're going to fantasize about it very intensely and vividly. They're going to imagine it and simulate it long in advance. There is a really big danger here though. People often talk about things like the law of attraction and manifestation. Now, I don't believe in those things at all, or any concept along those lines. However, there is a central idea underlining both of those approaches, and it's a simple one. We tend to become good at things we focus on. If something occupies the majority of your thoughts, then you're going to be quite expert on it, given enough time. This is the positive side of things. But the danger comes from the flip side of this. For a type like INFJs, any insecurity or doubt that they have can be magnified in their own mind because of that vivid nature of their imaginations and thoughts. It's kind of reminiscent of the film Inception, where the main character might be in some fantastical dreamlike creation, yet he is haunted by certain memories. They keep infecting the dreams. Insecurities, anxieties, and worries are insidious in that same way. It's essential for INFJs to walk that tightrope of embracing their own imaginations and powers of simulation without letting their insecurities become self-fulfilling prophecies. Let me know down below in the comments what life rules you would give as advice to INFJs and which ones you might have learned from them. If you haven't already, then please like and subscribe, and check out all of the links below the video that include the Love Who Discord server, which I'd highly recommend joining.